Yo, welcome back. Going to be playing some Mario Kart in this video. Today's story, I'm actually really excited to share with you. So you already know this one is gonna be crazy. I'll be dropping my thoughts here and there throughout the video. Still your favorite narrator for now. Let's get into the story. I asked my crush out in the hallway, and she grabbed the flowers out of my hand and said, "I would never be seen with someone like you." She snapped the stem in half when she said it. I was standing in the middle of the courtyard during lunch, holding a single red rose that I bought from the flower shop near the bus stop on my way to school that morning. It cost me $8, which was most of what I had left from my paycheck at the grocery store, where I bagged and stocked shelves every weekend. I walked up to Ren Castellano in front of the fountain where she always sat with her friends, and I asked her if she wanted to go to homecoming with me. I kept it simple. I said, "Hey Ren, I think you're really cool, and I was wondering if you'd want to go to homecoming with me." I held out the rose. My hands were a little shaky, but I said every word clearly because I had practiced it the night before in my room, while my younger brother threw a tennis ball at the wall and told me I was going to choke. I didn't choke. I said exactly what I planned to say. Ren looked at the rose and then looked at me and then looked at her friends who were already watching with that expression people get when they know something entertaining is about to happen. Ren took the rose from my hand. For 1 second I thought she was accepting it. Then she snapped the stem in half and dropped both pieces on the ground between us and said, "I would never date someone like you." She said it in her full voice, not a whisper, not a side comment. Her full voice in the middle of a courtyard where at least 50 kids were eating lunch. One of her friends covered her mouth. A group of guys at the table behind her started clapping like they had just watched a highlight on television. Somebody from across the courtyard yelled, "You just got destroyed, bro," and the whole area erupted. Ren sat back down and flipped her hair and started talking to her friends like I had already stopped existing. I stood there for a second looking at the broken rose on the concrete. Then I picked up both pieces because my mother raised me to clean up after myself, and I walked back inside the building and went straight to the bathroom and locked myself in a stall and stood there for 10 minutes breathing. I didn't cry. I wanted to, but I didn't because the bathroom wasn't empty and I could hear two other guys talking by the sinks, and I was not going to give this school another piece of me to pass around. By 6th period, the whole school knew. A guy in my weight training class called me Rose Boy. Someone in the locker room asked me if I wanted to borrow a pair so that next time I'd have the guts to talk to a girl in my own league. My friend Scotty told 3 different people to shut up, but the jokes kept coming because high school is a machine that runs on other people's pain, and I had just given it fuel for a month. The worst part wasn't the rejection. The worst part was that nobody talked about what Ren did. Nobody said she was cruel. Nobody said snapping a flower in a guy's face was wrong. They said I should have known better. They said Ren was out of my league. They said a bag boy at a grocery store doesn't ask out Ren Castellano and expect anything but what I got. Like my job and my bus ride and my $8 rose were the reasons I deserved to be embarrassed in front of 50 people. Like she was a prize I hadn't earned the right to reach for, instead of a person I liked who could have just said no thank you and let me walk away with my dignity. I almost didn't go to homecoming. Scotty talked me into it. He said we'd go as a group with some guys from our weight training class and that nobody would even remember the courtyard thing by then. He was wrong. People remembered. But I went anyway because I bought a shirt and tie from the thrift store and my mother pressed them for me and I wasn't going to waste that. Ren was there. She came with Leon Delk, who was a senior with a truck and a leather jacket and the kind of jaw that made freshman girls walk into walls. They walked in together and Ren was glowing and Leon had his hand on her lower back and they looked like the couple the school voted for before anyone actually voted. I stayed on my side of the gym. I hung out with Scotty and the guys and we ate bad food and made fun of the DJ and I was starting to feel like maybe the night wasn't a total loss. Around 9 o'clock I was refilling my cup near the bleachers and I saw Ren sitting by herself at one of the round tables. Her clutch was on the table and her chin was in her hand and she was watching Leon across the gym. He was leaning against the wall talking to a girl from the volleyball team. Not just talking, he was touching her hair. He was standing so close their shoes were touching and he was smiling at her the way a guy smiles when he wants a girl to know she's the only person in the room. Ren watched every second of it. Her face looked exactly like mine felt in that courtyard 3 weeks ago. Then she saw me. The second Ren saw me, her expression changed. Not into shame, not right away. First it turned hard, like she could still muscle her way out of the moment if she acted like she was above it. Then Leon leaned closer to the volleyball girl and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, like Ren wasn't even in the same building. That was when the hard expression cracked. I should have looked away. I should have taken my flat fruit punch and gone back to Scotty and the guys and let the universe do what it was clearly trying to do. Instead, I stood there near the bleachers holding a paper cup and watched the girl who had smashed me open in public realize she wasn't special enough to be protected from the exact same feeling. Ren stood up so fast her chair scraped backward. She walked straight across the gym toward Leon. I couldn't hear her over the music, but everybody around them could tell it was bad from the body language alone. Leon turned with that annoyed look some guys wear when they think being confronted is ruder than cheating. Ren said something sharp. Leon shrugged. Ren pointed toward the volleyball girl. Leon laughed in her face, then Ren slapped him. It cracked across the gym louder than the speakers. The music didn't stop, but the room changed anyway. Heads turned. Conversations died. Even the DJ looked up. Leon touched his cheek, looked around to see who had witnessed it, and muttered something at Ren that made one of the girls near him flinch. Then he walked out like he was the one who had been wronged. The volleyball girl followed 10 seconds later pretending not to know him. Ren stood there alone in the middle of the gym floor with half the room staring at her. For one awful second, I saw exactly what she'd done to me. Not the details, the shape of it. A whole crowd deciding your humiliation belongs to them now. Ren grabbed her clutch and rushed out of the gym. Scotty appeared beside me with a plate of stale nachos. "Well," he said. "Yeah, you know what this means, right?" I looked at him. He lowered his voice. "By Monday, nobody is gonna care about your flower thing anymore." He wasn't wrong. That didn't make me feel good. By first period Monday, Rose Boy was dead and buried. Ren slapping Leon had replaced it in the school food chain. Everybody had a version of the story. In some versions, Leon had been caught making out with Talia Merritt behind the bleachers. In others, he had dumped Ren right there in front of the photo booth. In one especially stupid version, Ren threw her shoe at him after the slap and missed. High school does not let facts get in the way of a good humiliation. What bothered me was how quickly the school flipped. The same people who laughed when Ren wrecked me were suddenly acting like she'd always been unstable. Girls who used to hover around her now kept their distance like whatever happened at homecoming could stain them. Guys who had spent 2 years trying to get her attention were now calling her crazy loud enough for teachers to hear. It was ugly, but it was familiar. The machine had found a new body to feed on. At lunch on Tuesday, Ren walked into the cafeteria alone. That by itself made half the room look up. Her usual table near the windows was full. Every seat. 2 girls who had been in all her group photos for years were sitting there like they didn't notice her. One of them saw her coming and slid her backpack onto the only empty chair. Ren stopped. Not for long, just long enough for anyone watching to understand what was happening. Then she turned, picked up her tray a little tighter, and walked out the side doors to the courtyard. Scotty watched her go and said, "That was brutal." I stabbed at my fries. Yeah, he looked at me sideways. You want me to say she deserves it? No. You want me to say it's karma? No. Then what do you want? I shrugged. Nothing. That wasn't true. What I wanted was for people to stop acting like public cruelty became less ugly when the target was someone they had decided not to protect anymore. What I wanted was for everybody to admit they loved a humiliation, as long as it wasn't theirs. After school, I had a shift at the grocery store. I changed into my green polo in the employee bathroom, clocked in, and spent 3 hours bagging milk and frozen waffles and paper towels for people who never looked me in the eye. Around 7, I was gathering carts in the parking lot when a silver SUV flew in too fast and parked crooked over the line. Ren got out of the passenger side. Her mother came out right after her. I knew her mother by reputation even if I'd never spoken to her. Linda Castellanos sold expensive houses and looked like she had been assembled by a team. Hair in place, makeup perfect, smile that never reached the eyes. Ren slammed her door and headed for the store. Linda grabbed her arm. I wasn't close enough to hear the first few words, but Ren yanked free and said, "Stop touching me." Linda lowered her voice, then glanced in my direction when she noticed I was nearby. Her face sharpened the way adults' faces do when they realize there is a witness. Ren didn't care. "You care more that everyone saw it than that he humiliated me," she said. Linda hissed something, then Ren laughed, and it was the ugliest laugh I'd ever heard from a teenager. "You sound just like me." She shoved past her mother and went inside. Linda stayed still for 1 second, then followed her with the kind of posture that told me she would rather have broken a heel than lost control in a parking lot. That line stayed with me all night. "You sound just like me." When my shift ended, my mother picked me up because the late bus had already stopped. She took one look at my face and asked, "You want pancakes?" That was her way of asking if something had happened. My mom believes most bad days improve with food and a kitchen table. She is usually right. While she mixed batter, I sat on the counter and told her a watered-down version. "A girl from school said something awful to me a few weeks ago," I said, "and now something bad happened to her, and I thought I'd feel better than I do." My mom whisked the batter like the bowl had insulted her. "Do you feel sorry for her?" "I don't know. Do you still feel hurt?" "Yeah," she nodded. "Both can live in the same house." No, that line is insane. You can feel sorry for her and still be hurt. Both things are true at the same time. His mom understood that before he did. That's a good mom right there. That sounded like something she'd been carrying a long time before she ever said it to me. For the next week, Ren's fall kept going. Leon posted a picture in Talia's truck. Somebody made a fake account called Slap Queen. Her friends drifted. Her teachers started pulling her aside in hallways. Even from a distance, I could tell she was exhausted. The polished version of her had started fraying at the edges. She wore hoodies instead of fitted sweaters. She stopped doing her hair. She moved through school like she was trying not to catch anybody's eye. One Friday after last bell, I was at my locker shoving books into my backpack when I heard my name. I turned. Ren stood 6 feet away in a gray sweatshirt and no makeup. She looked younger without the armor. That somehow made me more uneasy, not less. "Can I talk to you?" she asked. Everything in me said no. Pride said no. Common sense said no. Memory definitely said no. But the hallway was almost empty, and I had spent too many weeks wishing she would at least acknowledge what she had done. So I said, "Okay." She stepped closer, then stopped. "What I did in the courtyard was cruel." I said nothing. She took a breath. I keep trying to make it sound better in my own head, like I panicked, or my friends were watching, or I was trying to be funny. But the truth is, I wanted them to laugh. I wanted to feel bigger than you for a minute. That honesty hit harder than any excuse would have. "I knew exactly what I was doing," she said, "and I'm sorry." I looked at her for a long time. The apology was real. I could tell. That didn't make the bruise disappear. "Why now?" I asked. She let out a tiny bitter laugh, because getting humiliated is apparently very educational. That made something ugly flare up in me. "So this is about you feeling bad now?" She flinched. "No, I mean yes, obviously I feel bad. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I know what I did to you. I know I made you into entertainment. I know people treated you like you were stupid for even trying, and I know I started that." My throat felt tight. "Yeah, you did." She nodded once. No defense, no denial. Then she pulled something from her hoodie pocket. A red rose. My whole body went cold. She held it toward me and said, "I know this is stupid." "It is." I figured. Neither of us moved. Finally I said, "I don't want that." Her hand dropped immediately. "Okay." She looked like she wanted to say more but didn't. Then she nodded and turned away. I should have let her go. Instead I said, "You should apologize to Scotty too." She looked back. "You called him weird and desperate for being my friend." Her face tightened. "I forgot I said that." "I didn't." She swallowed. "Okay." Then she left. On Monday she apologized to Scotty outside the weight room. He came to me afterward looking stunned. "She told me I was loyal," he said. "That's true." Then she asked if I hated her. "What did you say?" He shrugged. I said I didn't know her well enough to hate her. Then I told her she was kind of terrifying. That got the first real laugh out of me in days. After that, things didn't magically become soft and pretty. We didn't turn into friends overnight. She didn't earn instant redemption because she finally figured out basic decency. Mostly, what happened was, we stopped being symbols to each other. A few days later, she showed up at the grocery store while I was restocking canned soup. She stared at the shelves, then at me. "Do you know where the baking soda is?" I blinked. "Aisle 3. Thanks." She started to leave, then turned back. "Do people from school make fun of you for working here?" "Some." She shifted her basket on her hip. "That's dumb." I leaned against the cart. "Useful information. About a month late." She winced. "Yeah." Then she left. The next time I saw her was in tutoring. She was failing algebra, and our teacher had started a peer help thing after school. I was one of the students who helped because numbers made sense to me in a way people never had. Ren walked into the library, saw me at the tutoring table, and visibly considered leaving. Our teacher blocked that option immediately. "Perfect. Sit with him." Ren sat across from me like the chair had insulted her family. We spent 40 minutes working through equations. She was better than she pretended to be. She just got frustrated fast and covered it with attitude. "Why does X need so much attention?" she muttered at one point. "Because X has unresolved issues." That made her snort. Then she looked annoyed that she'd laughed. Tutoring became a weekly thing. At first we only talked about math. Then it became math plus random side comments. Then actual conversation. Not deep at first, just small cracks in the wall. She told me she hated the way everybody assumed she was mean all the time now. Like one public mistake had rewritten her entire personality. I wanted to say it wasn't one mistake, but I understood the feeling too well to be cruel about it. One evening at the library, while she was erasing a problem hard enough to tear the paper, she said, "Do you know what the worst part is?" "What?" "I don't even know if people ever liked me or if they just liked standing near me." That one stayed quiet between us for a second. Then I said, "Probably both." She gave me a tired smile. "Thanks. That was less comforting than I hoped." "Sorry. No, it was honest." Honest became our thing after that. Not kind, not brutal, just honest. She asked why I worked weekends instead of playing sports, and I told her because bus passes and groceries didn't appear by magic. I asked if she had always been obsessed obsessed with what people thought of her, and she said no, but her mother had been obsessed enough for both of them. That part I learned in pieces. One Saturday, I was at the community center waiting for my little brother's basketball practice to finish when I heard Linda Castellanos' voice through a half-open meeting room door. I don't care if she's upset, Linda said. I care that she's become unpredictable. Another woman said something too low to catch, Linda went on. She slapped a boy in public and now every parent thinks my daughter is unstable. Do you understand what that does to perception? I froze. Then Ren's voice cut through from farther inside the room. It's amazing how every bad thing that happens to me becomes about your reputation. Silence. Then Linda, low and sharp. Lower your voice. No. A chair scraped. Footsteps. I stepped back just before Ren came into the hallway. She saw me and immediately knew what I'd heard. For 1 second I thought she'd pretend everything was fine. Instead she laughed without humor and said, "Great. Audience." Linda came out behind her with her fixed smile already back in place. Teenagers can be dramatic. I looked at her and thought about the courtyard, the parking lot, the homecoming slap, the tutoring table, all of it. Then I said, "Adults teach them how." Linda's smile twitched. Ren stared at me like she didn't quite know what to do with that. After that day, I understood more than I wanted to. Ren hadn't invented cruelty. She had inherited a polished version of it and then performed it better than most people around her. That didn't excuse what she did to me. It just gave it roots. By winter, we had settled into something strange. Not friendship exactly. Not enemies. More like witnesses. People who had seen each other at their ugliest and kept talking anyway. She started painting again. I found that out because she showed me a photo on her phone one night at the grocery store. Big, messy strokes of color. Nothing polished. Nothing social media perfect. My mother says it looks unfinished, she said. It is unfinished. I know. She meant emotionally. I looked at the painting again. I like it. She smiled at the screen. I do too. That smile was different from the ones she used to wear at school. Smaller. Realer. It made her look more like a person than a performance. In February, I got into state on a partial scholarship. I printed the acceptance email because our home printer only worked when it felt spiritually aligned, and my mother cried in the kitchen while my little brother jumped around yelling that I was leaving him with all the chores. The next day at school, Scotty told half the building before I could stop him. Ren found me by the lockers. Engineering, right? Probably. You'll be good at that. I shrugged. You don't know that. She tilted her head. You think before you speak. You notice details. You like things that make sense. That's basically the whole field. I laughed. That's not the whole field. It's enough of it. A week later, she got into Northridge, a private school 3 hours away. She showed me her acceptance on her phone and then immediately said, "My mom wanted Easton because the families are richer and the alumni network is better. Do you want Easton? No. Then don't go there." She looked at me like I had suggested she set the house on fire. You make that sound simple. It's simple, not easy. She stared at the acceptance screen for a second. I don't know how to make decisions that belong to me yet. That might have been the saddest thing she ever said. Spring came slowly. The school found new people to tear apart. A sophomore got caught cheating on 3 exams. A teacher was investigated for changing grades. A kid in band got caught throwing up behind the gym during Spirit Week. The machine kept eating. Ren and I kept talking. One afternoon, I was sitting on the curb waiting for the bus when she came over and sat down beside me in a skirt that definitely was not meant for curbs. We watched cars pull out of the lot. Then she said, "I used to think being admired was the same thing as being safe." I turned to look at her. She kept staring straight ahead. If everybody wanted my approval, then nobody could hurt me first. Did it work? I asked. She smiled without humor, not even a little. The bus turned the corner at the end of the street. Right before I stood up, she said, "Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" That was the question that had been sitting between us for months. I thought about the courtyard, the broken rose, the bathroom stall, the weeks of hearing people laugh when I walked past. I thought about her apology, her mother, the tutoring table, the paintings. Finally, I said, "I think I'm not carrying it the same way anymore." She looked down at her hands. That's probably fair. Prom season hit in May. Scotty got asked by a girl from choir who thought he was funny. I was not planning to go because I had work that weekend and dances seemed determined to be bad for my self-esteem. 3 days before prom, Ren found me at my locker holding a small white envelope. I immediately said, "No." She blinked. "You don't even know what this is. It's prom related. I can tell." She laughed. "Open it." Inside was $40 and a note. I looked up. "What is this?" "The Rose Reimbursement Fund," she said. $8 principal. Emotional interest added. I laughed so hard I had to lean against the locker. When I looked down at the note again, it wasn't a joke. It said, "For the flower, for the cruelty, for making you into a story for other people. You didn't deserve it." I handed the money back. "I can't take this." "I know. I just wanted to give something back." I kept the note. That weekend, Ren was supposed to go to prom with some boy her mother approved of. Instead, she walked out in the middle of pre-prom pictures when Linda started directing her like a pageant contestant and criticizing the way she stood. I wasn't there for that part. I heard it later from Scotty, then from Ren herself when she showed up at the grocery store at closing in jeans and smeared makeup. "I left," she said. "Good," I answered. "Really? Did you leave for you or to upset your mom?" She considered that. 70% me, 30% collateral damage. Acceptable. She smiled and then pulled out her phone to show me her latest painting. It was bright and chaotic and alive in a way she hadn't been at the beginning of the year. "Better?" she asked. "Way better. Than the painting or than me?" I met her eyes. Both. Graduation came hot and loud and uncomfortable under our gowns. My mother cried before they even called my name. Scotty nearly tripped walking across the stage. My little brother screamed like I had won a championship. Ren graduated too. Her mother was there in pearls and a camera-ready smile. People were hugging and taking photos and sweating through their nice clothes when I turned around and saw Ren walking toward me across the football field. She stopped in front of me and held out a single red rose. Whole this time. No audience, no laughter, no show. "Thought I'd return the symbolism," she said. I took it carefully. "Thanks." She looked at me for a second and said, "You were never someone I was too good to be seen with. I just didn't know how to be decent without an audience to reward it." That was about as close to a perfect apology as real life ever gets. I smiled a little. I know. My mother, who understood more than I ever told her, quietly herded my brother and Scotty away so we had a minute. Ren looked out over the field. "I'm going to Northridge." "Good. I told my mother yesterday and didn't ask permission." "How'd that go?" "Like a plane crash in a jewelry store." I laughed. Then she asked, "What happens after this?" I looked down at the rose in my hand. I don't know. That was the truth. I liked her more than I wanted to. But liking someone after they've hurt you and changed isn't the same as trusting them. Trust takes longer. So I said, "Maybe we stop trying to turn everything into a scene and just see what survives real life." Her eyes softened. "That sounded very engineering of you." "Thanks." I meant it as a compliment. She stepped forward and hugged me. Brief, careful, real. When she pulled back, she smiled, that smaller, real smile again, and said, "For what it's worth, if you ever ask another girl out with a flower and she does something like that, I will absolutely ruin her life." I laughed. That sounds unhealthy. I know. Growth isn't linear. Then her mother called her name from across the field, sharp as broken glass. Ren rolled her eyes, looked back at me and said, "Text me when you get your dorm assignment. You text me when you pick your first painting class. Deal." She walked away across the grass with her cap in one hand and her gown open at the front, and for the first time since I had known her, she didn't look like she was performing for anybody. I still went to state. She still went to Northridge. We texted. Not constantly. Just enough. A picture of my terrible dining hall pizza, a photo of one of her canvases, complaints about professors, jokes about how engineers think in diagrams and art students think in emotional weather systems. In October, I mailed her a little travel paint set from the bookstore near campus with a note that said, "For unfinished things." A week later, she mailed me back a Polaroid of a painting in progress and wrote on the bottom, bottom. For the record, I would be seen with someone like you now. I kept that photo in my desk drawer. So no, this story didn't end with me publicly humiliating her back. It didn't end with me standing in a courtyard and breaking something she offered me while everybody laughed. That would have been easy, symmetrical, cheap. It ended better. It ended with me keeping my dignity even after she tried to take it. It ended with her learning that being wanted is not the same thing as being good. And it ended with a whole red rose finally making it into my hand without breaking first. After everything, that's how you end a story. All right, that's it. Drop a comment, subscribe. See you guys in 2 days.